All right, big toys require standing up. Tell us what we have here.
So what we have here is the ID series, which is the ID 100 TVP head, and we're just running it through a Blackstar 412 angled cabinet. This is really the flagship, the big boy in the range. ID Core is effectively the core parts of the ID series. The ID series is a very different beast because this is a pro touring stage amp. The idea with ID series, when we released this a few years ago, was to create a giggable, great sounding, flexible amp without valves in it. So this is a non-valve amp. This is a digital amp, or tubes, if you will. This has all the benefits of digital technology, very high amount of research and development, and this is probably a 5-year project for us. The same team that developed all of the artisan hand-wired Series 1 Pro, all the venue stuff, all the same development team that did this. So daytime would be Series 1 and nighttime would be research and development for this, until we could finally achieve what we needed to and produce this, which is a 100-watt rated digital non-valve programmable amp, which performs exactly the same in a live recording studio, stage, arena environment as a equivalent 100-watt valve amp.
Which is the important part to point out. Here at Blackstar, we're talking wattage of the transistor amps with the same figures as you would expect from a regular valve-driven amp. So this is a loud package, you said, for touring. We were chatting earlier, and the basically what you did, or at least the way you explained it, is you took all your know-how that you created doing the first amps you came to the market, which were the tube amps. Yeah, you took all that and you were trying to recreate that in a digital way without losing contact to the original and without losing the feel of playing. Because loud is one portion, but the feel, how it responds, is the other one, and you took special care to stay in the same ballpark as your valve-driven amps.
Definitely. I think that's the important part. As I say, it's the same team. We are at Blackstar known for originally our hand-wired and our pro touring. I mean, we're stood in front of a nice wall of Series 1, which 100-watt, 200-watt valve amps. And at Blackstar, we have the experience of how to do that well. What we wanted to do is understand why valve amps are the way they are, why they perform, they have a live mix, they cut through, they are desirable. What is it about them that sounds good, right? Yeah. The right sound. And the feel part is the important thing, I think, from the player. When it gets to the player, if it doesn't feel right under their fingers or doesn't quite react to, as I was demoing earlier with ID Core, with pick dynamics and volume, then it doesn't feel right. And we spend a lot of time.
I'll stop you here for just a second. I played the small ID Core and the 40 watts just a second ago, and I have to tell you, it does not feel right. Okay. It feels bigger than it is. So is there an excuse for that?
Yes. It was really driven from this. Yeah, I think when you play this in a minute, you'll feel that. Okay. It's. I think when we were talking earlier, I think the best word that we were talking about was attack and percussive, which is really, in my opinion, only my opinion, but the part of playing a valve amp that feels natural and feels good, and that percussive connection between your pick and your fingers and what's actually coming out of the amp and effectively the size it feels and the feeling of a big amp is exactly what was developed here when we talk about TVP, which is true valve power. And it's that that approach to creating a guitar sound, which is all to do with understanding why valve amps do what they do, and making it accessible in digital and programmable amps, and then moving it from where we are here to what we've just done with ID Core, and of that feeling of size and playing.
Talking to about TVP, I want to point out that the idea behind it, the program, was attractive enough for the British government to invest money into it.
Yes.
So you obviously have been able to convince people that this is also an interesting field for searching information, to go and try dig in and find the
why.
The why.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we as I say, this has been a longer project. We released this a couple of years ago at the Music Messe, and that was after what was about 5 years of research and development in reality, because our technical director, Bruce, our MD Ian, and all of our development team who were designing Series 1 and Artisan in the day as part of a day job to bring Blackstar to where it is. Then home time would come, and our technical director, Bruce, would go home and think about digital technology and how to do it. And got to a point with his research whereby, yes, we received a research and development grant from our UK government to carry that on. So you're absolutely right. It's more about guitar sounds. There's more to it than that, but we apply it all of our technologies to what we do best, and this is where it came from. So the idea with True Valve Power, it sort of describes exactly what it is, as we're referencing. This is a 100-watt programmable amp that is side by side, which we do all the time, as I was saying earlier, for perceived volume, level, how it cuts through a live mix with other guitarists, bass, drummers, which is where traditional non-valve amps fall over, effectively, at gig levels, volumes, and just environments, really, not all to do with volume. The understanding why that's the case and why valve amps don't was the principle for True Valve Power. And True Valve Power meaning that 100 watts, same as the 100 watts in a valve.
okay, I think we're gonna demonstrate a little bit. We're trying not to go over the mic level there, but that's why we have the hand mic here, so the other one could be turned really down. I'd stow this one away and leave you alone with some of the sounds. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'll just very quickly describe what we have. Hopefully you guys have seen the ID Core panel already, so it should be very similar, very quick to run through. The same 6-voice selector. We have gain, volume, bass, middle, treble, ISF. Same effects section. We have a master section which has got volume, resonance and presence, which are non-programmable, so you can set up all your sounds and then use the master section to tweak the sound to taste depending on what venue you're in, if it's a bit darker or brighter. I think the good thing to have a listen to and demonstrate here would be the TVP section. You'll see there are 6 settings. Each one of them is denoted a valve type. So we all the way from down at the bottom here with an EL84 going up in effectively in character and power handling, if you like, into a 6V6, EL34, KT66, 6L6, and KT88. And what that's actually doing is it's not to do with volume. It's not getting louder. It's not just applying some EQ. It's changing the way the digital sound from the amp is reacting with the output stage. So it's taking the characteristics of an EL84 power stage with its higher compression than, say, a 6L6, or it's got lower headroom so it breaks up earlier, has certain tonal characteristics. We're using those to create the feel and the sound of a EL84 output stage. So what you'll hear, I'll do a comparison here, say between EL84 and something like a 6L6, which is a much higher headroom, more top and bottom end. It's a less compression as well, and we'll hear the difference. So what I have now is I have a crunch sound set fairly crunchy to my taste, a small amount of reverb, and we're on the EL84 setting. So this is just your EL84 reference tone here. So that's an EL84. What I'll do is I will play whilst I'm changing so you can hear the difference. What you will hear is an increase in perceived level and output, because an 6L6 can deliver more power than an EL84, but in doing so there'll be less compression because an EL84 has a high compression. So this is the 84. And this is the 6L6. So the 6L6 feels a bit more open, is a good way of describing it. If you sort of understand that reference, is a bit more high end, a bit more low end, a bit more output level, and a bit fuller sounding because there's less compression. The EL84 is compressing the sound and keeping it at a nice level. So 6L6, EL84.
Okay.
There's one more demo that's worth doing.
Yeah, very good. We do that.
Is 6L6 setting. What you'll see down here in the TVP section is you have the ability to disengage, turn off the true valve power effect. Okay. So what we have now with it off is what a traditional linear transistor style power amp section would sound like, can deliver. And in pressing it on, I'll be engaging the 6L6 sound that we just heard. I've not changed anything else, and this is what TVP does.
Yep, that was worth the extra demo. One has to say that obviously 6L6, EL84s, and so on come in multiple different packages, and always sound a little different.
They do.
They stay in the same zip code, but they sound a little different. So you might hear that and say, well, that's not the EL84 sound that I have in my head.
Yeah, right.
But it's just a guideline to tell you in which ballpark you are. And so more use the difference in tone to identify which direction you're going to go than the absolute, which is always depending on your personal experience as well.
I think it's worth saying, particularly on that point, which is a very good point, you may or may not know, and you guys have probably seen, but our tagline for the company is the sound in your head. So the idea is we can create sounds that we like, that we know how to make, but also give, with our products, the ability to get the sound that you like. So you would use a combination, exactly as you just said, with you've got your voice control, you've got your EQ in the ISF, you've got the TVP. You can effectively take the parts that you like, or the flavor that you like that your EL84's in, and make that the case. A traditional EL84 may have a clean, bright, styled preamp on the front end of that, which sounds, a little like this. But I might like the compression and the feel of an EL84 power stage, but in my head, I want a really aggressive overdrive sound on that, which maybe you can't get that amp in the world. I would be surprised if you can get that amp in the world, because they come in different flavors, as you say. But actually, with this, I can do that. I can go to, let's go to OD2, which is a mid-boosted, hot-rodded overdrive channel good for lead. But I've got an EL84 power stage at it, so it's going to compress more and feel saggier, and I can do all of that with it.
So let's say I've used this amp for a year, and I found the things that I like. Can I send back then the KT88, for example, and get a refund, or?
You never know what you're going to need. I think that's interesting. Obviously, there are settings on here which are more common. So you've got EL84, EL34, 6L6. Yeah. But the other three, okay, 6V6 for a small amp, clean sound, nice, rounded and warm. Things like KT66, which is quite an early use valve. There's not too many that use it anymore, but it's got a characteristic. In this case, let's go back to the crunch sound. There is a nice mid-range voicing in it, which is actually, I find personally, again, great for blues. Yeah. Neck pickup. And KT88, for example, we use KT88s in our Series 1200, which is why we know how they react. Okay. Huge headroom, so you never know. There might be one day that you decide, I'm going to use that KT66 for this song, this recording, this track.
Okay, so in this case I keep them once I have them.
Keep them and bring them out the drawer when you need them.
Alrighty, we'll do that. See you later.